Hey guys, and welcome back. As you can see, my tripod finally turned up, so I was super excited about that. But I was that excited that I just chucked it on my desk and started sketching away like a madman. However, didn't consider the lighting. Didn't really notice while I was drawing, and now looking back at the footage, there's like 1001 shadows just everywhere. So I have to work on that. Might also try and get the tripod tootsies out of the way and move my cell phone charger. But we're learning here, guys. I have recently been looking at, what are they called? Betta fish. They are so cool, and I want a whole sorority now. I feel like I need some bettas. But I was looking at this little pink one in particular, and it reminded me of some of my Copic markers, and I wanted to draw her. But once again, new tripod, super excited, found a sketchbook that I haven't used, so this isn't, as you can see, it's first page, it's not my usual. And I just started drawing, and usually like I will thumbnail on the left side and then draw on the right side of the book. Didn't even thumbnail. Missed a lot of what I was actually aiming to draw, but my idea for this was to be a mermaid, obviously, but I wanted her fins to look like some kind of big puffy ball gown. So I think as far as positioning, thumbnailing would have helped. It would have been a good warm-up too, but since I did not, we have a very simple pose, very simple fin placement, and it's just nice and simple. So I'm not actually mad, but I may redraw this with a lot more movement. Yeah, could do with that. So when I finished the sketch, I grabbed my Artline drawing system 0.2. It's probably one of my favorite sizes to line with because I can get the details. But it kind of wasn't till the end of doing all my lining that I paused and took a look and realized that because there's a tripod over top of my work and my camera's over top of my work, I had to lean back. And so the angle that I was looking from looked a wee bit different from the angle the camera sees. And I was 100% sure that her eyes were lined up in the same size. But as you can even see right now, her left eye is just gliding up her face. But that's fine. I can just not look at this picture ever again and it'll be good. But apart from that, it was fun. I didn't even sketch out the hands properly. That was a bad idea. But once again, it could have turned out a lot worse. But it has also given me a lot to work with as far as my setup. Once again, I'm going to either have to get a new light or move around my existing lights to get rid of those shadows. And probably actually practice drawing from this angle, so that things look the way I intend them to look. I think too, another hindsight, I should have got one of my thicker pens and gone round not only the outside, but like the parts of the fins in her arms that are in front of her body and tail, and the fins that come out like her hair. I think that would have been added that bit of depth, and I think I could have experimented more with actually shading with the ink liner. But that might be an Inktober goal, because that's going to come around quick. The Copics that I used today were the RV21 Light Pink, which tries to escape, but that's okay. The RV23 Pure Pink, tried to be gentle, it's really not my style, in an RV42 Salmon Pink. Initially these were the only 3 colours that I wanted to use. I should point out I have a really cool eraser. It is just a Faber-castell one, but it's one of those dust-free, so the actual, what do you call it, eraser bits are very minimal, and the bits that do come out tend to clump together, and they're just, I don't know, it's just nice, and it doesn't damage my inks very much, if at all. And then I realised, even though these were the colours I had swatched in my other sketchbook, I hadn't swatched them in this one, and then that actually changed my plan a wee bit. So yay for testing, remembered to do something. And then I just kind of got to it. I wanted to keep the kind of thin texture, so I did kind of take longer than I meant to just by swiping it out instead of block colouring. Only to remember that if I had block coloured like the top of it, it would have blended together nice, and then I could have just done the wee strikes off, but it's fine. We got there in the end. I was actually quite surprised how nice these markers worked on this paper too. I was trying to find what kind of sketchbook this is, but it was just an old one that I bought who knows when, and I have ripped all the label and stuff off the front, so I actually know nothing about it. But it did hold the inks quite nice. They did bleed through to the other page, but it didn't, like, you can see it through the page, but it didn't bleed into the following page, so I was quite happy with that. You see, this is where I made the mistake of, since I had the shape, I stopped looking at the reference, because I was kind of like, oh, okay, the pink just glides from this bit and it's white at the end, and I kind of made a deep, what do you call that, V-neck style thing, more like a dress I'd looked at like the day before drawing this. But then I just kind of started using my colours because I wanted to, and yeah, it was interesting. Although it doesn't seem to be showing up as different as it looks in real life. But that's alright. I did go back and try and darken some bits up, but I don't actually think it changed all that much. I really should have grabbed some darker colours, and because it seemed like there was just so much white space, and while the reference picture, the end of the fish's tail was just white, I didn't really like it, because it was like 2/3 white and then all the pages white. So I went in, and this is where I just got fidgety and started adding bits. And adding even more bits. With this, we're using a different colour. It did make more of a difference laying over the pink that was already there, and that's when I kind of remembered that Copics actually layer really nicely and they don't damage the brushes, which I get really, or the brush tips, which is something I get really paranoid with pens. I don't want to end up with a bunch of pens that have muddy colours on them, but these Copics, I've done a bit of experimenting before and they're actually really good for layering. I took a Y08 Acid Yellow and put it into her eyes because I figured it kind of went with the more skin tone colour that her face is, and it would look quite nice. And then, yeah, I thought she looked too floaty, needed to anchor her to the page, so I tested a couple of blues, and in the end I went with the B23, which is a Phthalo Blue, which was very interesting because I don't know if it's the way I've had the brush pens sitting up, because they do have, and you'll see it in a bit, the chisel end as well. But the tip of this pen was really, really dark. It didn't seem to affect it in any way. It worked like normal, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. I found too, like, I usually prefer the brush nib, and so I kept trying to use that, and it did click eventually that it has its chisel end. I can use that for bigger space. Here we go. And look at that, covering all of it. So I have had my pens sitting up, and so they've been chisel nib down, brush nib up, and it did confuse me a wee bit as to why the brush nib had the dark spot on it and the chisel nib nearly seemed a little bit dry, but after a wee bit it just worked out. There wasn't anything else that I needed. It was just nice and inky. And then I decided, yep, rough enough, and tried to take a nicer photo of it, but that didn't sit very well. But thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.